and it would have been off-white. And a man, most of the time, would have worn a tunica like this, but without the stripes. If you were a carpenter, you would just wear this to work. You would sometimes use a belt if you needed to, just a rope to tie around to keep it pulled up to give you more mobility. But they didn't typically wear what you hear of as a toga. They wore a tunica. A toga was sort of like dress attire, putting on a coat and tie for the boys here. If you were going to church, if you were going to a special meeting, if you were going to a worship service, you would wear the toga, and I'll show it in just a minute. But the original ones, the early ones, were the toga gorilla, which was just a man's toga, very plain, no borders, just a straight piece of material, and I will explain it later. As the period progressed, people became wealthier. They started developing more of an industry of clothing, and there were actually people then who were paid by the more wealthy people to make the cloth for them or to weave it. So they had a group of people who actually became fairly wealthy who handled material, and they were called fullers. And they would both make and clean it. And one of the unpleasant, should I talk about how they, okay, one of the unpleasant parts about this job was the fact that they used primarily urine for their work. They would have little pots around town where they would collect it, then they would ferment it, and when they did, it would separate into two things: urea, which made a wonderful dye to make things darker, and ammonia, which would clean. So these people had an unpleasant job, but they became fairly wealthy from their trade. And as the period went on, things evolved with the toga and the tunic. The stripes that you see on here developed later. These were reserved for the equestrian class. Have you talked about the various classes?
We mentioned patricians yesterday. Does anyone remember what the patricians are? Emery?
Wealthy or noble families.
Yeah, wealthy or noble families.
Okay.
Good.
The equestrians, can you guess a word that might come from?
Horse.
Yes.
Yeah, actually, 8th graders, you've learned equiways, haven't you? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the reason that became the richer upper class was because in the early periods of Rome, when they needed an army, they would just gather people together, and those who were wealthy enough to bring their own horse were the equestrians. So that's how the wealthier class got that name for horse. But if